Regular meeting of the July 13, 2021 Nelson County Board of Supervisors. We'll start with a moment of silence. Mr. Rutherford, can you lead us in the pledge?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just before we get into the public comments, I just wanted to note that Melissa Gay is here from CVAC, and she is eager to give the board an update on Firefly broadband installations in the county. So I'll include that under item 4 presentations when we get there. So thank you for being here. And we'd like to open public comments. I don't have anyone signed up, but if anyone would like to address the Board of Supervisors, this is your chance. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mary Catherine Allen, 7763 Richmond Highway, Gladstone 24553. Is that all the information you need?
Yes.
Okay. Done this before. Good afternoon, I guess I should say at this point. I'm here representing Nelson County Youth Baseball, but along with just being a mom, my son is here along with his teammates. I'm going to have them stand. Trey Terry, Landon Thacker, Blake Victor, Michael Fitzgerald, and James Allen. We are here because these young men are with the Madison Heights 15U team. Now I know that sounds a little odd because we're Nelson County. Nelson County did not have enough this year to do a Dixie Boys team, which is 13, 14, 15-year-olds. So they went and played at Amherst this year. And Amherst and Madison Heights franchised together because they had just enough to make a 13-man roster for the 15U. And our 5 boys are on this team. They won their state tournament at the end of June, and now they are going to Louisiana to the World Series. And we are very excited about this. These 5 young men also played on the JV high school team this year, who went undefeated. And as far as I know, most of these young men, if not all, will be moving up to varsity next year, representing Nelson County on that level. So we are all very proud of them. We are coming before you today. We have been fundraising to ask in your support in helping to get our sons to Louisiana. We are asking for $1,000 per child. And it will cover expenses of travel and food, transportation. Some of us are having to rent vehicles. The amount, you're not allowed to take any food or any drinks into the complex, so there will be daily menus sitting there. So if you have any questions for me, I'm willing to ask them.
Mr. Chairman, I think there's some interest that some of us on the board have with this potential. Is it all right if we discuss it after public comments?
I'd be happy to do that.
If you stick around for after public comments.
Okay.
It ain't gonna be long.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to say that I am the president of Nelson County Dixie Youth, and I know that right now we are having troubles with our registration and our numbers, but we are hoping as time goes on with these young men and T-ball coming up that we're going to be able to get that, especially with the recreational facility project. I hope will continue to move forward.
Of course. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak during public comments?
Yeah. Wasn't paying attention, sorry about that. Michael Hebner, 1146 8 Owl Road, Fall River, Virginia 22938. First of all, thank you for letting me come here today. I want to say, hey, we want to support you guys. We thank you for what you're doing. Sometimes it's a thankless job. So as a pastor, as a citizen, I want to thank you guys for doing this. And I do want to let you know that I'm the founding member of a new group called City Elders, and that we are a group of Christian men and women, business owners, pastors, civic leaders, that we are going to be praying for you guys. And whether we support some things that are done or whether we oppose, it doesn't matter. That's beyond the point. We want to pray for each one of you, from the superintendent right down to the clerk, to each one of you. And I want to say thank you, and that we apologize for not being engaged sooner, and that will change from here on out. So thank you.
Thank you.
You need to meet the young man right beside. You met him before?
I do.
Yeah. Y'all have a lot in common.
Anyone else like to speak? I'll close the public comments and move on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, since we were post public comments, is it all right if we discuss the opportunity with the baseball
Yes.
folks? I'll go first. All right. Yeah, I think this is a very exciting opportunity. At any point that we can support our youth in in these big ambitions, especially athletic ones, I think is a good thing. And it builds up a great culture here, making a healthy one as well. Being active outside is a critical thing. I've known many of those young men right there. We've met several times, and I think I coached one of them in soccer at one point, but are some of his siblings. I think this is a great group. I hope we can support this. I would be interested to know further thought.
I agree. First of all, congratulations on the
Yes,
season and everything you've done to represent the county. These type of activities for our youth are super important, and I definitely support them. I think the cost of what they are proposing is around $1,200 per player. I certainly don't think we should fund the whole thing. I think they need to work for it. But I would certainly entertain a number, say $1,000 each, and appropriate $5,000 for the team. So that's just.
Where would this money be going to specifically?
So, I think probably the easiest thing to do would be to write the check to NCYB,
Yes.
and then we would, take care of cashing that and giving it out to the families. We do leave Monday morning because we play, our games start Wednesday morning. So most of us are leaving out of town Monday morning so that we're not driving 15 hours straight through, to give them a little bit of reprieve and to get down there and get them ready Tuesday evening in the batting cages and stuff.
Got it. Okay.
Why wouldn't y'all hold on to the money and provide it as needed?
I can do that.
You know,
That's
giving a
what-
kid whatever we give them is a lot of responsibility.
Well, the parents will have the money.
Well,
But if you would prefer me to do that, I can do that as well.
Are y'all all staying at like the same hotel or same?
We are, I actually booked it under a contract, so
Okay.
we are staying at the same hotel on the same floor.
So just to simplify it, that might be a good route, potentially.
my only problem is that's a lot of money per child. And I don't ever recall giving that kind of money per child for anything. That's because then when the next group comes, yes, it's only 5 here, but what if it's 15 of them? I think we've been normally giving you 2,500 or something.
I've never come before you for baseball and with an amount of money for something like this, so I don't,
Usually that's what we do.
Yeah,
I know for some of the school kids that have done some of those programs that,
I know you gave 5,000 to the DI when, because my daughter was part of that group. So the Destination Imagination 2 years
Oh, yeah,
ago.
that's right. I
yeah,
remember that.
You gave 5,000 to us and 5,000 to Ty River,
I remember that.
but we were going to Kansas City, so. Which is about 15 hours away.
I don't have a problem with it, it's just that, you know, you're setting the bar pretty high. But y'all just discuss it.
Well, I guess I feel like you could take the figure out of per child and just say 5,000. It just happens to be 5 of them divided evenly.
Sounds much better.
Does that sound much better, doesn't it?
Let's do it that way.
Mr. Brugier used to do this all the time. In fact, they were with Amherst, weren't they?
Yes, sir. So I took over about 6 years ago and we were going, so NCYB has been going for 10 years. Prior to that, we were franchised with Amherst. And so Coach Berger was part of that, yes.
They were very successful,
Yep, I think they got either third or fourth place.
so.
All right.
Any more questions for Ms. Allen?
Just keep your eye on the ball, you know?
That's the least you can
And,
do.
and the wonderful thing about baseball is you have to anticipate what's gonna happen before. And really, in many ways, it challenges the brain more than any other activity. And have fun, you know, have fun and talk. And, you know, I coached baseball for years at the high school, probably some of your fathers. I don't know.
Probably grandpa.
Your grandfather, maybe so, maybe, and so good luck.
Thank you. Any other?
What's the official name of the organization?
And the official organization is, it's Madison Heights 15U is the name. It is under Madison Heights Baseball.
But we're not taking care of that group.
No, you are sending it
That's
to
right. Her
NCYB,
group
Nelson County Youth Baseball.
That's the answer.
Friday so that I can cash it and have it for them this weekend.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And after this, we're encouraging the young men to come shake your hands. Is everybody comfortable with that? I know at times
Sure.
it's some are not.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we appropriate a flat sum of $5,000 for the Nelson County Youth Baseball to be used on their upcoming trip next week.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, or any further discussion? Yeah, I would just like to add that not only is this for the 5 of them to, give us all their best, is also in the future to help build the program in the future and to see that we have inspired young folks following in their footsteps. So,
Absolutely.
thank you for
We're
that.
just hitting that plateau at the high school now. These kids that have been dealt with since they were in grade school with the coaching and stuff and coming right up through, and these kids beginning to hit junior varsity and varsity there, and we're having some pretty successful teams.
Watch out for them the next 2 years.
As long as y'all get a states here in a little bit, all right?
We got, who got my bag? Some movie, oh, there it is. Oh, that was the FFA, but we got baseball bats up here.
Yes. Okay. In case this doesn't work. So we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Parr?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Thank you. That's encouraging.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you so much. I hope I write
Thank
today.
Planning commission, that was so good.
Linda? Linda Russell.
Okay.
How you doing?
Turkey, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks.
How you doing?
We're gonna get out of y'all's way now.
No, thank y'all.
Good luck, guys.
Good luck.
I'll get them. We expect a full report and
On
stats.
Facebook, you'll have it.
Live feed of stats.
Okay. Public comments are closed. Consent agenda is where we are.
I was just curious what local emergency operations plan is, can we ask him a question?
Absolutely.
Question. Can you talk to us about what's going on with that? Or what the strategy is going forward?
The local, so the
Can
local.
you give your name, please?
Russell Gibson, the Emergency Services Coordinator. The local emergency operations plan, the county plan is it's a requirement under the local emergency planning grant, LEMPG, comes from FEMA. It basically it breaks out different resource sets, such as firefighting, law enforcement, emergency medical, then on down to transportation, logistics, volunteer organizations, things like the Red Cross, et cetera, that could be called upon in the event of emergency. And it outlines how those agencies will work together, how those groups will work together based on the type of emergency, whether it be wildland fire, flooding, severe weather events such as cold weather, ice storms or something like that, long loss of power, and then even to flooding, big things like that. So that plan is required to be updated and submitted, approved by the county, and then submitted to VDEM every 4 years. And this is our first update from the 217 plan.
It's been there forever.
Okay, got it. I have
You
no
just have to
questions.
upgrade
Yeah,
it.
it's the first time I've seen it.
It's come a long ways too.
So, question about this isn't necessarily because we don't have a copy of that, so I'm just seeing your letter. I read that the other day. But are there many changes? Big changes?
No, sir. No, the primary changes are just constantly updating contact lists. People who have been in out of positions, such as people contacts at the Red Cross or contacts at animal control. They have some different capabilities that will change from time to time. The fire apparatus, the EMS apparatus that are being, as some go out of service and then new ones are purchased, making sure that those lists are all kept current.
Which, as a side note, Valley gets their truck pretty soon.
Haven't got it yet?
Not yet, but they'll be getting it. I think it's coming up, July, sometime July.
I think it's the end of this month.
I think it's the end of the
It
month.
may be.
So does this plan discuss specifics, for example, if it's this kind of call, this is what dispatch should
No.
send out? That's not this plan?
No.
Okay, no.
It's more of usually when this coming in effect, you'd be working with Amherst, Albemarle, some other things, just mutual aid agreements with all them and all.
This plan basically, let's, hypothetically speaking, if there was a fire in the drive zone, a wildland fire, brush fire that's threatening a neighborhood, this kind of plan gives you checklists of you need to notify, you need to have a transportation group. We would work with the schools and see if they can furnish buses to transfer people outside of the evacuation area. Red Cross, different agencies for housing those people. After that, law enforcement to either do checkpoints, house-to-house searches to make sure people have evacuated. EMS in case there's any injuries. EMS for the responders in case there's any injuries to them while they're performing those other duties. And it gives you an outline, kind of breaks it up as far as those things go.
And they already have that almost same identical locally. But it's usually when it steps up a little bit is when that comes
But
in.
yeah, it really works on the coordination between when an incident goes beyond the resources of just the county. How do we start to integrate with the Department of Emergency Management on a state level, and then either do kind of a rolling handoff so that there's not really an interruption in, people coming from around the state as far as a mutual aid issue or a mutual aid compact or something like that, so that we can just kind of fold into that operational cycle.
What I've always been taught, when your checkbook won't handle it, you call the next level because they have bigger checkbooks.
Yeah, and just to add to what Russell's noted, this would, I think he alluded to this, in case of an emergency, the plan says, how we move forward with emergency declaration, contacting state and federal officials, et cetera. And I think, if Russell can correct me, but in our discussions, this is just a step to ensure we're in compliance over that 4-year period. But I think Russell, over the next 4 years, wants to update and improve the plan, so to say.
As it exists, it's about 340 some pages, because some of it's redundantly built to describe the role of EMS in 7 different types of events. But I'm working on toward creating like a 40-page kind of executive summary, some kind of like on-the-fly version that's actually usable for you gentlemen, for the county administrator, or the treasurer needs to know when there's an event going on like that, those kinds of things. So.
Great. Good. Any other questions for Mr. Gibson? Thank you.
Thank you, Russell.
Okay. Back to the consent agenda.
Yes, sir. I have no further questions. If there's no further objection, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Parr?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes. Okay, we're going to have a quick VDOT report today.
Quick.
Quick,
Well,
not a whole lot
Relative.
going on, thank God, 250 is open, and I'll answer any questions you want to ask.
Yeah. Freedom.
Now, we've let that come in a little bit early, it was a challenge, and that was a very difficult project, that was a hard fix. And, we're very fortunate to get it open as soon as we did, and also without anybody getting hurt, because that was a very dangerous, operation up there. It didn't look like it, but it was. We should be grading on High Peak Road, next Rural Rustic project. That should have started yesterday again. We're looking to do, the next section of Cedar Creek very soon, for Rural Rustics. We do anticipate having an early paving contract on 664 at Reach Gap to complete that paving. We've done some base work up there, so looking to do that. And other than that, we are just taking care of our ordinary maintenance needs and trying to get a little focused on getting back, doing some planned work. So I'll be glad to answer any questions, any concerns that you have.
The thing we talked about that sharp turn, people maybe have called your office up and they led them to believe it was going to be done. It was going to be a sign that was going to be put up, having to do that sharp, more than 90-degree turn, which is totally blind on a hillside,
Yeah.
outside of Williamstown.
Yes, we sent that back, I sent that back to our traffic engineers and asked them to take a look at it again. I haven't gotten it back from them yet.
There's no way that that's not a dangerous place. There's been a couple accidents there. And like I said, people from called up and said, were told that it was going to be done. Was that misleading?
No, this 250 probably had a lot to do with it.
Okay,
Plus-
it's more of a question
One
than
thing
I'm
you've got-
I don't say it's misleading, when it comes to regulatory signs like that, I have to have a recommendation from our traffic engineers before I can put up that type of sign.
Government does not work fast.
Yeah, well, it needs to be private sometimes.
Well,
It is a danger, there's no doubt, The second thing, and I'm not sure whether you have to do with this and how much you have to do with this, but I think you do because it's opposite of where VDOT is, and that is where the dumpster is in Shipment. Where if you look at that, it's pretty obvious that they should have put the entrance and the exit opposite sides, because it is hard, particularly when you're old, to look to the right and to see traffic coming down. Now, if this was something that would be short, but that's gonna be there for years. I imagine
Yeah.
that situation is
the
gonna
county
be,
did that.
what?
The county did that. Highway had
I
nothing
know
to do
the
with it.
county did that, but you could say something about it, and it has to do with reversing signs and everything. What I would like the county to do is find out how much it would cost as a start to reverse that thing. I looked at it, it doesn't look to me to be a very, really hard thing to do. But the fact that it's there, and it will be there for decades, seems to me reason to look into. Because it does, particularly being an old person that you pointed out before, it's very difficult to look to the right to see what comes down there. So I'm sorry if it's inappropriate to you, but I think it's
No, I mean,
opposite VDOT, so it does have.
I mean, if we permitted those entrances, which I'm sure we did, and we permitted them, I guess you're talking about the one-way in and one-way out,
Yeah.
designated entrance and exit. Steve, if y'all want to take a look at that, I'll be glad to work with you to make any modifications as far as running, doing traffic review. But that is an attended section, that's a straight section of highway for the most part.
It's not, if you,
Yeah,
where the exit is, it's not really straight.
The trees coming out.
The problem that we screwed up on, you should always come in on the top side and go it on the bottom side.
Well,
It just makes sense, and I think we did it for the convenience of the trucks, which the trucks, the way we got it set up now, they have to come in the bottom and then go at the top.
Yeah.
But it can be fixed, but,
It was designed that way by the engineering consultant. And VDOT did review and approve the site distances, et cetera.
they're not always right either, Steve.
But to me, it's a legitimate concern.
I agree with you 100%.
We've never had any accidents.
Well, I know that, Steve, but it makes sense is when you can turn, because the best sight distance is at the bottom. So that would be whether it be coming out.
Yeah.
And when you're turning at the top up there, bad weather, anything else, it's not like, trying
that is a
to
35 mile per speed zone.
Yeah.
25 or 35.
It's like
It is
35.
35, it's 35, but there's a passing lane below that too, which is, you might want to think about.
Well, they can take him away. He can control that.
Yeah.
So Steve, y'all want to take a look at that and,
Oh, yeah,
okay, just let me know what you want us to do.
okay.
Barbie, do you have any?
Let me go last.
Anyways, I'll be short, because if he wants to go last, we meet that subdivision, Mountain Ridge, I'm meeting with them, just FYI, so we might have some further questions for you.
On
The partnership kind of concept, the making a private road into public.
was that the one, which one was that?
Mountain Ridge, it's the one that,
Mountain.
Cost,
The
yeah.
one that I've.
yeah,
given you an estimate.
you already gave the estimate out. So just FYI, we might make some phone calls to you about that. And that is all I can think of.
Mr. Park? Have nothing?
I nailed him, broke your pipe again.
He and I'll talk about that.
Mr. Hall and I already talked about that, but we'll talk again.
Yeah, nice. Well, letting you be last, I got a couple things. First one, Route 828, Riverview Road, is paved at the beginning where it's on the steep side, and as you get back there where there's more residences going up towards the river, it goes into gravel. And I'm wondering if you can take a look at that and see if it might qualify to get paved back there.
Right, 828.
828, right.
What was that street name?
Riverview.
I've heard it. Where is it at?
It's inside Rockfish River Road and the river.
Is that on that 6?
It's on
The
the east side of 29.
Irish,
First right, north of where
Irish
Woods
Creek,
is, Woods Mill.
Irish Creek, Route 6.
It's Fodder.
It's south of Route 6. South of Irish, north of it, north of Route 6 between 29 and 150.
How many houses is there?
I'm not sure the count on it. There's maybe a dozen back there. It could be more. I didn't give it a really close look.
Yeah, I know where that is now.
But I did go back there, and clearly it's an area that is likely to see more instead of less use. So it is a dead end, though. It doesn't empty out anywhere. The other is, now that you have done such a fabulous job on 250, kudos for getting that done ahead of time, and to everybody who poked you along so it would happen. I had requested traffic count north and south of Route 6 and 151 there. One that would so give us an idea how much traffic is coming, south or north on 151, north of 6, and those that continue on towards Brents Gap and Winter. So just wanted to revisit that because I know it definitely fell through the cracks when you were all hands on deck.
So you basically want traffic count from north and south of
The Route 6
on
interchange there.
151, north and south of Apple Mountain Road.
No,
No.
the substation.
Right.
Well, 6
Or
comes under the
substation.
substation.
Route 151, north and south of Route 6 River.
Right.
Route 6 River Road.
Yes.
We may have them.
Yeah, because we,
It's a couple years old. at this
well,
point.
the big study may be 5 years old,
Yeah.
but they've got pretty up-to-date numbers on those.
If we count them this year, I don't know, probably the latest published count we're gonna have is 2019. They probably haven't released the 2020 counts. Cut that down. Apologize for that, I thought I had that thing silenced.
Okay, so you can just check on it for me?
Sure,
That'd be great.
sure.
I appreciate that.
Right before you I'm gonna ask you for an update, not today, but I'll be reaching out to you before my fire department board meeting next week about Firehouse Road, because the firemen are asking, if there's a timeline on that, the edges, that when they're turning out of the firehouse going towards 151, where it falls off on the sides of the road.
You need to find out who that called somebody in the highway department that got 664 done so quick. That's who you need to call. He won't tell me.
That is a secondary road. Since it is the primary access for the firehouse and emergency vehicles, we could use some traffic services, county a lot of money if you all want to.
I believe that was the conversation you and I had that day.
Yeah. Not the county and safety funding that we use in Marine Scout, because we pretty much exhausted that, but since that is a secondary road and it is an emergency access service road for the fire department, that would certainly be a legitimate use for those funds if we wanted to proceed with that. If the board has no objections, then we can utilize that funding, some of that funding to take care of that.
And that's available funds.
Yes.
Right now.
Mr. Hart?
All right, I want to give y'all a history lesson
All right.
first. To tell you how that operates up there on 250. We do not maintain any part of 250. The Lynchburg office or our responsibility. That there's a trade-off between we take care of 151 all the way to 250. So we trade off that maintenance and stuff for that part, and they take that little short section up there on the mountain. So most of this stuff comes through Culpeper District is where the district office is. And then the Yancey's Mill or Charlottesville, how that goes.
Charlottesville,
So it-
residents of Yancey's Mill.
But it was a lot of coordination. Our people in Lynchburg was as involved as anybody. But that took a lot of coordination to get all that, and that's why people just don't understand why it just doesn't happen tomorrow. That was a very critical spot, a very dangerous, which I expect they use a lot of engineering up there to, I agree with you, I would hate to be on a tractor sitting up on the side of that mountain. I mean,
When they started working, it was, and actually had equipment on that slope, it was still moving.
but I want to really thank the highway department for what they did. Our staff here did a tremendous job. I guarantee they on first name basis with everybody from the state level down. And when we was talking to them, they got response. I mean, things just don't move fast. And I don't know of never seen a sign in the state of Virginia that was in Spanish. And Mr. Brown even got one right there at the firehouse because we kept being told that, well, these people don't speak English. So we said, okay, we'll put a Spanish sign out there. And that was done. But that towards the end, I mean, the traffic problem was taken care of. State police stepped up to the plate. The sheriff's department stepped up to the plate. I don't know how many tickets, I've heard over 200 some tickets
I can believe that.
were written. And they're not cheap tickets either. That is a offense, it's not good for CDL. It's a big to do with the CDL. And not only that, but these phones and things would also send them up there just before you get to 250, where Dickwood Road goes up that mountain there. They were going up there in tractor trailers because the GIS was telling them, well, this road is blocked. You can't use this road. So they were sending them down there and letting them come over right there at the post office. Well, I mean, I don't know what common sense is, but Cree Deeds, Avoli, and I think Matt was involved in it. When Steve hit the right buttons, I'm gonna tell you what, things started happening. It started happening quick. And the whole time they were still working. So it's a lot of people to thank for having it done right. Like we were talking a while ago, that is not the last spot up there either. There's some other problems up there. And I don't know whether they're gonna try to tackle them ahead of time or.
I haven't heard, but I think for certain, Mr. Harvey, that we're gonna investigate that slope to look for those spots. I don't see why we couldn't do anything but that. And even assess the slope on I-64, because there was a great concern that it was going to extend up to East Atlanta 64.
Well, the people right below that, in the upper end of Afton, have really paid the price for 64. There's a water problem that started then, and it's hard to deal with that water. I mean, they are just, it's really been an effect on their property, so hopefully they can do something that, while they're up there, but water is probably causing most of this problem.
Water, subsurface drainage.
Yeah, but, it was a big project, but I'm gonna tell you what, I don't care where you went, Lynchburg, Bedford, you could see those signs about Route 6 and Route 250 being closed.
See them coming down Lynchburg.
Yeah, on 460 up there, they had
460.
signs. I think there were
Lynchburg going
20, at one time there were 26 or 28 signs.
Yep.
And I mean, we hit every sign they got, and, it was very good to watch government work at its best.
Well, thank you.
Like I said, it didn't happen overnight, and those things, they're not on a plan either.
Yeah.
So,
What's the final dollar number? How much that cost?
yeah, we're very curious to know that.
I haven't heard a number.
I'm sure,
I would say-
sure in the
I
millions.
was,
It's got at
I
least two
don't
commas.
yes, I'd
Yeah.
say $5-6 million.
Holy cow.
Because we've had those same company stabilize slopes for us and do the soil nailing.
Yeah.
And it is, any little slope with 2 rows of nails is $300,000. That's dropping the bucket to what they do up there.
Yeah.
The slope that we did on South Atlanta 29 about 4 or 5 years ago, where that slope slid, just south of our walk on the county line, we spent over $500,000 right there 5 or 6 years ago. Sold that.
That's it.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite Melissa Gay to come up and give us an update on Firefly and CVAC.
Can we leave, Jensen?
Yeah,
We've already heard this one time.
well, you gotta save your questions again.
I'll move quickly. I'd also like to introduce Galen Creekmore, who works with me at Central Virginia Electric Cooperative as our key accounts representative. Galen is my partner in crime, as well as we work very closely with Gary Wood, who is the CEO of CDEC and Firefly Fiber Broadband. I serve at Central Virginia Electric Cooperative as the Communications and Member Services Manager, and I also do communications for Firefly Fiber Broadband. So it's my pleasure to be here today.
Did you tell Skip who you were?
I did indeed. Who I am?
Huh? She didn't introduce herself, did she?
Yes, you did.
Just now.
I did. I just finished it. My title was so long, it went for 10 minutes. Anyhow, it is my great pleasure to be here. I thank you for allowing us to give you this update. And please do ask questions if you'd like. We were here at 1 o'clock. So I'm going to try to clip along to Mr. Hardy's point. But please stop me if there's a point that needs clarification. I'd like to start by giving you an update on our fiber build in the Central Virginia Electric Cooperative Service Territory. We are thrilled to announce that the construction has completed in Martin, Store, Wintergreen, and Colleen substations. As you all know, we have Martin Store connected and Colleen. We do have some Wintergreen accounts connected as well. We are working in the Gladstone substation. Right now, we've encountered a few delays due to river crossings and railroad crossings. We're getting there, slowly but surely.
Yeah, I did have a question.
I was going to say,
If you want us to interrupt or wait or what, so I get a call from a couple people who were in view of the Gladstone substation. And they had not been connected. They were anxious to be connected.
Yes.
When will that happen?
Well, we are working on the crossings. So right now we have, we've got our river crossing done. And we're waiting on our railroad crossing there at Gladstone. So we are hoping that we will have this done in the next several months. We know we've been waiting on Lingina for quite some time to get a flagger to come in. So we do have a few hiccups along the way for the labor force that we need to do a crossing.
I think they're primarily interested in getting hooked up, but everybody's not gonna be hooked up until you have everything in place.
That is correct. If they're on the other side.
Yeah, well, so Skip, just to explain what he's talking about, actual hookup from the fiber infrastructure is already in Gladstone, correct?
Part of it, we're
Part of
able to get it.
Some people have said what he said, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but he's basically, and this is a kind of constant, a lot of people see the fiber and it's even on their house, but they ain't hooked up yet. So probably the commentary that he's experiencing in Gladstone a lot of is that hookup from house to router.
Got it.
Just people are, that's another side of it that we haven't really thought about, but we get those phone calls the most.
Well, so once the fiber is built on the lines, the next step is to slice it into little boxes, splice all those little cables, fibers to go to your home. They'll construct a drop, which will go from your power line right to your house. That could take a month to 6 weeks to get your drop in and get it spliced. Once the box is on your house, I'm dating myself a bit, if you have a landline at home, you have a phone box on the outside of your house. That's what our box looks like on the outside of your house. That's where the fiber terminates and goes into the home and then hooks to the router. So once that box is on your house, they should be getting a call. And if they haven't gotten one, they can call Firefly anytime to get an update on their specific address. That's probably the easiest, but once that box appears,
Yeah.
that's like Christmas morning.
And y'all are doing like, I believe, a couple hundred installations a week, right?
We are doing about 160 to 180 per week,
That's great.
yes.
And growing, right?
And
Hiring more.
as we'll see.
Yeah.
So we are working on our Piney River and Schuyler substations. As you can see, we expect to have the construction completed in spring of 2022 for Piney River and summer for Schuyler. The connections will take place after that. That's getting the fiber up on the infrastructure. As you recall, we had several CARES projects in Nelson County, and all of those are complete except for our Shipman one that's west of the railroad tracks. We did encounter a problem installing the fiber into the VDOT right-of-way. We encountered rock, solid rock, and we could absolutely not go underground with that fiber as initially planned. So we are partnering with Appalachian Power. We'll do an overhead build now. So Appalachian Power didn't expect us to pop up and need this work done, but they're partnering with us to do the engineering piece to figure out how the fiber will go onto their poles for an overhead build, as well as to change out the poles and do the make-ready work that is needed to accommodate the new addition of the fiber to their infrastructure. As soon as that's complete, we will construct the fiber like normal, put the drops into the homes and get those folks connected.
And where is that?
That is in Shipman, west of the railroad tracks. Okay. That says north of the tracks.
But it's west.
Yes.
They meet west.
Okay. Also said that doesn't say what I said.
The railroad tracks going back towards Port Martin.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So there were two sets of, or is it called different money? There was a first set of, for example, Pine River, there was a first set of money that did this section. And then there was a second set of money that went up to Langford Bridge to Fleetwood School.
That's
And
correct.
that's not listed here. So is that something separate from what we're looking at here?
It is,
Okay.
and that was our state funding. You're absolutely right. So we didn't put that in. We didn't want to confuse people when we talked about Piney, but it's nice to see that you're so tuned into the CARES projects. But that was also included for the build.
I was
So-
saving from state money and this was county deals. They're just
Right.
different pots.
So you're saying all of these are complete?
With the exception of the one where we hit the rocks up here west of the track.
So there's fiber at Fleetwood School. And the second set of money from Piney River going from where this stops, up 151 to Lane Ford Bridge and up to Fleetwood School, that section's complete as well? Because it's my understanding there are houses between Henderson Store where you turn, what's the Cow Hollow Road there, and going to Lane Ford Bridge. There's a bunch of little white houses in a row, bunch of J.H. Fitzgerald rental houses, and it's my understanding that stretch does not.
Okay.
So, and I've been getting a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's that little, that.
You know where I'm
Right on
talking about.
151.
I would like to follow up on that, and I'll report back
That'd be
to
great.
you all on the status of that particular section. Thank you.
And this, I know is, but I've got to make a public request, but there's this little section right here where you go from the substation through the field and you hit all this area. There's 16 houses in this little, the house over here has it, the house over here has it, and everybody in that little center section there is feeling like a redheaded stepchild right now. I don't know if that's an easy fix because it's just right there around them, or if that's something that has to be much later.
But
I
isn't
don't know,
that the
but
difference between API and
those are AEP customers there. As everybody in this shaded section here, they're all AEP.
In that same spot.
Yeah, that's all AEP. But this is where Mr. Harvey, where you grew up, right there, I believe.
Co-op lines, so they're actually sections.
Okay,
On that map, you can actually see the colored lines,
On the
right, the co-op lines. And then AEP comes
yeah, right.
right together right there.
Is there a road name I could write down?
It's at the end of, is that Tybrook? It's called Tybrook, isn't it? Tybrook Highway. That Y right here, this is 151, okay? And then this is 56 Tybrook Highway. That's the fork in the road where you go, right there.
Okay.
And this is your substation. The co-op substation is right there.
I made a drawing as well.
Thank you.
but Appalachian almost touches the substation.
Yeah.
Correct.
there.
It's just this one little weird little area that's about 16 houses that, one resident actually works in the county administrator's office. It would be wonderful to get all of them connected.
Well, I'd be happy to explore that. And I'll get back to you with the
Thank you.
answer. Next, I want to just remind you all about our project here with Appalachian Power in Nelson County. And this is to offer internet, gigabit speed internet to the entire county, all of Nelson County, any underserved or unserved areas. And these were the first three projects. So when Mr. Wood was here and you all discussed this universal bill, these were the first three. We are in the make-ready status on these, which means that Appalachian Power has boots on the ground at this time. They've worked out the engineering piece to figure out where the fiber will go. Their next step will be make-ready construction, where they'll change out poles, move around transformers, and put in guy wires and anchors to prepare for the installation of fiber on their infrastructure. And once that's done, it'll be turned over to us, and we will work on getting the fiber put into place and splicing and drops to the homes. So we've got about 625-ish locations here that will be added by way of the first three pieces of the expansion. Just as a reminder, this is the chart that you all saw when Mr. Wood was here that details all of the bills. So we're just on the first three right now, but we are not finished. Obviously, we've got some more county to work on.
And I just want to re-echo, as we did in the Broadband Authority, this is a living list. The only concrete ones are the first three. So once we get closer to the completion of the first three, then it comes right back to discussions and reprioritization. And of course, you guys will have good instruction too. So just for the.
We'll send the board the PowerPoint.
Yeah, great. Now, just make sure the record states that if you live in Livingston, you might not necessarily be 13th in line.
That is correct. Thank you for clarifying
Yeah.
that. There is
Yeah.
no rhyme or reason for the order here.
We could get rid of the numbers, one,
That
other
might
than 1,
be
2, and
helpful.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can see this now.
But they're also not underserved either in the town of Logan.
Yeah, sure. Well, we can argue about that later.
It's the first three.
Yeah, let's get through the first 3, then we can arm wrestle.
So we're here today to offer an update, but we're also here to ask the board of supervisors to partner with us on a project that we're taking on. So I'd like to talk to you for just a moment about that. And that is our RISE project. That's our Regional Internet Service Expansion project. So Nelson was a little bit ahead of the curve with the universal bill. And this is something that we'd like to model in other counties as well. We're Firefly partners with the utility in that area to build fiber to the home, reliable, affordable internet to every unserved location. So what you see here is the CVEC footprint. That's where we're already building. That's where our territory is. Our electric lines are there. The rest of that is another utility, and that could be Dominion Energy, APCO, as well as Rappahannock Electric Cooperative. So we've been busy at the table making arrangements with these partners to apply for funds to offset the cost of this build. So our CVEC bill is about $130 million. This is about $130 million all over again. So we want to go in for a grant. It's called the VADI grant, in the amount probably of $40 to $50 million, and to work on giving universal builds to these counties. So we're not doing it piecemeal, little pieces at a time. And this is something that's important and scores well for the VADI grant to do universal projects. This is your county, Nelson County. You can see the dark green is the CVEC territory, and the purple is the RISE. I'd just like to state we are building in Nelson County regardless of grant application success. This is our hope to include Nelson County in our VADI grant because there would be funds eligible, because the areas in purple are deemed underserved or unserved. And that means that there will be money from the VADI grant that's available in each county for sections just like this. And so regardless of whether the grant moves forward, as you all are aware, Firefly is committed to building in all of Nelson County. So what we're wanting to introduce is our partners here. You all have some APCO on your territory. You also have Dominion Energy up at the very tip top with Afton Mountain. So they will be a partner at the table. And this is just the overview here. There are about 600 homes left in that underserved purple area that we were looking at, 100 miles of fiber. To build that, we're talking about a $5 million build, and we would like to put in the application for Nelson County. We've got 12 counties going into this application. So for Nelson County, we would like to put in $600,000 request for grant funding. We would not be asking Nelson County for any local grant matches. You all have already made a match, and that match will actually count in the grant. The funds that you've allotted to the project will actually go towards a match. So we're not asking for any additional funds from Nelson County, but we would very much appreciate it if the board would make a resolution next month, if you would, to join the grant application. So as a part of our application process, we need to have a resolution from all 12 counties that just says that you are on board to participate in the grant application to serve your areas. And as I said, there would be $0 asked of Nelson County in addition to the funds that have already been allocated. This is the timeline. August, we'd like to come back with you with the final estimate. This is the estimate, the bottom line being that there is no money asked of Nelson County. But if we have to firm up or wiggle any of those maps or numbers, we would like to tell you that for the number in your unserved area. The VADI application is due September 14th. Hopefully, great news will be announced in December. The award will be announced at that time, and then Dominion will apply for their approval for their middle mile project, because Dominion is building the middle mile, which will hit your Afton area there, and we will, Firefly will build off of that middle mile to go directly to the home for last mile. And you all know about Firefly. I hope we've been here enough to tell you that we're affordable and we keep our co-op principles when running our subsidiary with no catches and no gimmicks and no data caps, no contracts, and no slowdowns. We've got some information about us here. We only do internet and phone. We don't have a cable option, as you're aware. And we need a little help from our residents in Nelson County and all 12 counties. The map that I showed you is what we believe are the areas that are underserved. It would be very helpful to us if the residents of Nelson County would go and take a survey from their home computer using their current Wi-Fi. It's a 4 or 5 question survey. And at the end of the survey, they click go on a speed test. And the results of those speed tests are sent to our repository. So they give us the information and we're able to see if they truly are getting the 25-3. 25-3 is the magic number that either has someone deemed served or unserved. And if they're getting under 25-3, then we want to know about it and we want to make sure that they're in the grant proposed service area. And that's it for me. We would love to be able to see you in August, or at least send a report in to let you know what we found from the survey from Nelson County residents, give you an update on the status of the grant application, and maybe we'll have some good updates too on some of those areas that are awaiting a little bit of work. Are there any questions?
Thank you for filling in the gaps in our knowledge and the county. So
My pleasure.
appreciate that a lot.
We're happy to come anytime. Thank you.
All right.
Nice to see you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you.
Are there specifics on that grant and the fireflyva.com/rise? Is there anything about that on your website that we can direct people to?
Oh, yes, for the
Yeah.
survey?
Yes,
Absolutely.
we just send them to that.
Just send them right to our website and they can click over it. It's literally less than a minute. It's 4 questions and do the speed test.
Just as a side note, this is a nice use of Facebook. So
Yeah.
just putting another little plug in for that.
Okay.
But our chairman of the broadband should be inviting y'all to these meetings of the broadband when they getting this information, because we got the same thing at 1:00.
Y'all are invited to the next one. Here you go.
Well, no, if they don't have a presentation,
Well, we didn't really know we were gonna get a presentation until I made the invite, and then they made a presentation. So, next time, well, me and you did talk about it.
Yeah, but this was great.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah,
that's what
I
I
could have seen it twice and maybe I'd remember it.
I don't think I learned much more.
Okay. We're moving on to new and unfinished business, and the first item is the amendment to the Code of Nelson County, Chapter 3 on animals. Mr. Carter, can you bring us up to speed on this?
The board conducted a public hearing on the draft ordinance last month in June at the regular meeting, and it was carried forward. Mr. Barr was absent, and I think he asked that, or the board decided to wait until everyone was here. The impetus for this was to include an annual license fee for licensing of canines. Mr. Payne drafted the ordinance as presented in the board's package. It still retains an annual license fee. I don't think, we didn't include Mr. Payne's previous opinion, but he did opine that the ordinance should retain an annual license as well as a lifetime license ability. I may have misstated it. The evidence was for a lifetime dog license. So the ordinance is before the board. We set the fees at the maximums. I note to the board that the Operation Animal Control Department is right at $250,000 revenue from licensing, current licensing, and shelter fees is just at $14,500. So, from my perspective, I would recommend that the board endorses the ordinance 02104, that the fees be established as presented in the ordinance. Certainly take any questions. There's also, if I may, a provision for service animals, which would be exempted from the fee requirement.
Just to repeat what you said, we've been through the questions before, and we've reviewed this, and we're just waiting for Ms. Parr to be here, so that it being something he put a lot of time and energy into. So. Any questions for Mr.
So the current fee is what, 7
Five.
Five.
Annual licensing.
for spayed or neutered? And then a different fee for, I think it's 7 for sexed dogs, right?
I have to.
5, 7, I'm
I
pretty
have to
sure,
get the code.
I know it's a different amount because I get the bill.
Right.
And I noticed that it's different, but I think 5, 7, and then we would be looking to add an option. So we would looking to increase both of those to a flat 10 and adding a lifetime for 50.
Yeah, but just as I said, those are the maximums allowed by the code, state law.
I don't know.
I mean,
I don't think we need to do the whole 50.
the thing about it is, the whole thing was brought up to eliminate a tax, period.
Sure.
And here we're increasing the tax and adding another option.
I think we could keep the rates the same for spayed and neutered and sexed and then put a strong campaign for lifetime. If people so desired. When I was looking at it, I floated around a couple different numbers by people, depending on the lifespan of a dog. That is something that we don't really think about much. And some dogs only do have a lifespan of 5 to 7 to 10 years max, especially some certain hunting dogs, those dogs work hard. But that goes into the kennel anyway, for most of the circumstances. But, I was thinking for a lifetime dog license where I think we could really advocate and get a lot of people to participate is if it's at $30. So, that's like a cost savings of, if somebody was just had a dog 5 to 6 years, they had expectations of having that dog for a long time. If they didn't, they'd have the opportunity to just pay the $5 a year. It would just be a good potential avenue in the future. So keeping the rates the same, and I was thinking a lifetime for $30. Interested for thought. And so that doesn't change anything, it just gives our constituents one more option.
I don't mind. I think having a lifetime license is a great idea. But I do think that the result of this is going to be that most people are going to, after paying a fee after a year or two, might see that it would be better to go into that. The difference in revenue is going to be negligible, no matter how we look at it. So I'm ambivalent about it. I would defer to the other folks on the board to weigh in on that. In the absence of discussion, do we have a motion?
You're not making it? Skip, do you want me to make the motion? Skip, what is your
I'm
thoughts?
referring to those who know more about it than I do.
Okay, so,
Like I wish you would do it with me at times.
Wait on Mr. Paul, why don't he do it?
What? What'd you say?
We was waiting on you to get
I
back.
didn't, I went to the beach, so I didn't have to vote.
All
I was
right.
supposed to do this in June.
So if I'm, Ernie, how about I just make this motion and see what happens? Mr. Chairman, I move that we keep the rates as it relates to spayed and neutered in-sex dogs that are paid annually the same, and that we give an option for a lifetime dog license of $30. Is that good enough for staff?
About the kennels.
We'll just keep that the same as it is. So keeping the kennels the same, the annual year rate the same, just adding an option for a lifetime for dogs of $30.
So the only change would be,
Adding in the lifetime dog license of $30. Does that make sense?
am I right that the only thing that would change in the proposed ordinance is 50 to 30? Or are you adding something?
Yeah, 50 to 30.
That's it.
And
Yeah.
also, he's proposing changing A and B.
Oh, yeah, to be, what the rates are the same. So maintaining all the rates the same, but adding in a lifetime dog license that costs $30 a year.
So we.
$30 for a lifetime.
And the board adopts further motion 02104, we would just revise it accordingly because the rates will all change. Or without looking at the code, they'll change back to what's already specified in the county code.
That's a motion now, still need a second, and then we'll.
And I would second that motion.
Thank you, Skip.
So, any more discussion on it? Smart.
Mr. Park,
Yes.
Mr. Harvey,
Yes.
Mr. Barton,
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford.
Yes,
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
you're welcome, I guess.
Next up is authorization for a public hearing on the proposed Board of Equalization ordinance.
Right, this is a proposal to amend the county code to set specific dates for the Board of Equalization to complete its work following the completion of the general reassessment of real estate in the county. Previously, the staff had introduced this a couple of times from 2002, maybe a couple times afterwards, and then we've missed it a couple times. What this would do, if approved, would set it in the code permanently, so the board wouldn't have to consider it at each following or prior to the completion of each general reassessment. So the dates would be April 15th for applications to the board, and then the board would complete its work by the 1st of June. Otherwise, the Board of Equalization sits in session potentially until the end of the year, in January, whenever they come into office, start their work through December 31st of the year. So it would abbreviate the process and sort of end it instead of allowing appeals throughout the year following the general reassessment. And what today's consideration would be authorizing the public hearing to consider the enactment of that ordinance, which we would, it's summarized on page 2 following the resolution, and we would redraft it into the form of the local ordinance.
This seems like something we should do. I think, I don't.
So
It makes it more
It's
efficient.
been done at least 2 times, maybe at least 2 times previously.
Yeah.
What we failed to do when it wasn't considered previously by the board is just present it before the general reassessment was completed and presented. So, this would cure our memory failure to remember to introduce
Got
it.
Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve resolution R 2021-41 I'm correct on that? Yes. Okay, as presented.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Garden?
Yes.
Mr. Parr?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Well, thank you.
So we'll have the public hearing in August. Okay. Capital improvement projects.
So I'll try to step through these quickly and maybe you can just take questions, might be the easiest thing. On the first three of the four subjects being considered or discussed today, those three, the business park, recreation facility, and the ag center projects were all board priorities established at the end of January of this year. The radio subscriber upgrade was introduced by staff at either the June or May meeting, and I'll get to the point of that when we get to that subject, but there's a deadline from Verizon that's looming, and we just want to make sure the board is, considers this again. The item C4.
You talk about Motorola.
Yeah, Motorola, not Verizon, excuse me, thank you. So the business park, I have the sense the board may not want to proceed with this project, so I ask you that question before I sort of give you the pros and cons of it. Should I just go for it?
I'm not ready for the whole business park, the whole large scale.
So, if I may, I'll just briefly step through some of the reasons why, maybe some of the reasons why not. In the past, the board has said where the staff has worked and been successful in economic development of the 151 corridor, the board, in the recent past, I think the last couple of years, has told the board that focus on Route 29. So this certainly would accomplish that directive if the business park would be realized. At the state and regional level for economic development, one of the state partnerships goals is larger business parks of this scale, because what would be assessed with this project is 2 parcels under common ownership that comprise about roughly 1,000 acres. And if the board approved this project and continue to work through it, the goal would be to develop the properties, if they could be purchased, to a tier 4 or tier 5 development under economic development jargon, so that the county would then be much more in a competitive position than we are today with attracting new business and industry into the county. That's definitely a goal that I hear repeatedly at the regional economic development partnership meetings where I represent the county there. And that's what the regional partnership is hearing from the state's partnership. We don't have enough large business parks and we need them, and please try to make that happen. There's only one large business park in the region now that's under development, and that's Louise's in the 64 corridor. And they've been very successful with obtaining Go Virginia funds to help them with that. And that's something we would, millions of dollars, that's something that we would also pursue. So the first step in this project would be the assessment of the 2 parcels that comprise about 1,000 acres. It's a very in-depth evaluation, and it would report to the board whether or not all of the land, some of the land, or none of the land is suitable for development. It would also look at the infrastructure in the county that would support the property if it was developed by, for business and other purposes.
I think it's fair to just proceed. I mean, we're still in the study phase. So, I mean, and the cost difference of not looking at this is going to be minuscule. Don't you think?
Well, I wanted to say the next subject too would This would help with the recreation project, even if the board didn't decide to go forward with the business park.
Right.
So, but what the board, and I know you understand this already, has to recognize is it's a long-term process, it'll be expensive, and even if you build it, there's no guarantee that you're gonna get a return on investment anytime soon, for example. But it would enhance significantly the county's ability, at least I think so, to attract new business and industry, new jobs for the county, particularly because of this, the 29 quarter, the size of the park, the effort by the state and regional partnership to attract new businesses to that site. But we have to potentially also improve infrastructure to support the facility. I'll add that in my attendance at the Regional Economic Development Partnerships meetings, and I'm on the executive committee of the partnership, so I see at each of those meetings, particularly the executive committee, what are called prospect reports. And those are reports that indicate or list businesses that are interested in potentially locating in our region, the number of jobs, the investment, et cetera, and what the business or industry does. Typically, I'll see those reports with this 25 to 30 or more potential or businesses that are interested in looking in our region or locating in our region, and they'll list the localities that they're going to visit. We're rarely on those lists.
I welcome talking about this because to me, this is what we should do. This is what democracy is about. It's about using reason to look at the problems that face your community and to come to some sort of consensus what would work the best. Thinking about this reasonably, I can't imagine that large industry or what we're talking about, large business park, would be attracted to Nelson County. I think certain kinds of businesses would be attracted to Nelson County, but not the scope of what you might be talking about. So we might be heading in a direction that would undermine what else we want.
Right. Well, I'm not suggesting with this project, that's all to be determined because an ensuing step would be, intensely, I can't remember from all the details of the proposals from Timmons that, was procured through a request, the engineering company that county staff procured through, and the board endorsed through, request for proposals. But one of the outcomes, either after this study or another, would be what are the target industries that the county should try to recruit to the park. But the first phases will be the development of the park, which will take a while if it gets to that phase. But I think the downside of this is we're concerned that this could change the character and complexity of the county as we know it today.
Well,
does the board want to attract new jobs, new business, potentially in a small or large scale? I mean, you would control those decisions, but it's what you want to do.
I agree with what Mr. Harvey just said about, we should limit the scope of what we're looking at. It's way too big.
Well, first, it's a question of do you want to be competitive or not? A lot of localities, including the county, have a business park, but they're not large enough to attract the interest of states.
In a sense, well, how would we compete? We would compete with housing, for the possible employees. We compete in quality of the schools. I just can't see us, or maybe tax breaks that we would give these large businesses. And I can't see us competing with that. I can't see us attracting that sort of large industry. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I want to repeat, it doesn't necessarily mean it would be a large industry.
I think something that has changed over the last couple of decades. I mean, you guys lived through the industrial park concept that went on for many decades. It said you couldn't be a legitimate county unless you had, a lot of counties did, like Pittsburgh made one, Colleen, Amherst made one. I think how we think of the word or the, words business park is not necessarily as intense as you might think. It could just be as simple as a software developer of 10 people. I don't know.
I mean, I think some people feel that the word business park means we're trying to attract GLAD, or Buffalo Air Handle or something large like that. And that doesn't have to be the case. I mean, that could be part of the study. But no, I don't want GLAD in Lovingston. But I think that there are other businesses that we could use that would be attracted to the infrastructure we have, the location, proximity to 29, the internet, what we have available right there, I think would attract.
I mean, as I tried to say earlier, if this thing moved forward and next steps, there would be work towards focus on what's the best thing for the county to pursue, as far as trying to attract new business and industry here. I think, but again, I can't guarantee anything. I mean, we're one of thousands of economic development localities, entities that are competing for a very limited number of new businesses, relocations.
Yes, that's why I agree with what Mr. Parr was saying, because, you don't need a large, I mean, you do need the infrastructure, but you don't need large scale. And the attractions of Nelson County aren't that. The attractions of Nelson County is it's a quality place to live. I mean, that is our major attraction.
Right, well, and I don't disagree, of course. I'll just note what is the recurring message I hear at the regional partnership meetings. The businesses want a site to be ready. They don't want to have to come in, buy the land and develop it themselves. They want it to be ready to go. And that's what Tier 4, Tier 5 status would do over time as this property, if conceivably worked out, would work towards, that's approximately where Louise is now, almost at a Tier 4 stage. They're already attracting new business to look at their park. I think the question for the board is, do you think it will change? I mean, it's hard to say, the character of the county or not.
Well, I have a couple questions about that specifically. Currently we have a comprehensive plan that we consider fairly out of date, although in theory it's still supposed to drive our decisions. How does this fit in with our current comp plan? I haven't reviewed that to see if these are lining up or if this is somehow different. Can you talk about that?
I don't remember the specifics of what the economic development section may say. I do know one of the overriding principles was maintaining the rural character and quality of the county. I would not suggest that this would necessarily change that. I think the board, as I indicated earlier, if the county develops the park and owns the park, you would get to decide who goes into the park. So if you didn't, as Mr. Bard said, want a large industry like it's located in Amherst because of what the outcomes they may produce, then you don't have to agree to do it.
Or if we develop the park at all.
Right.
Which is also there. What's the time frame for this report? Because we will be in the process of a comprehensive plan certainly next year. And the public will have opportunities to, as well as ourselves, comment on what our visions for the county and that area of the county might be. How are those going to overlap?
This report, per the proposal from Timmons, would be completed in roughly 60 to 90 days. That's what they said. And we would nail that timeline down if the board approves the proposal. The comp plan is probably going to take 2 years, is my guess. That's what's required when the 2002 plan was approved. That's in my report today, but I'll note to the board that planning staff are meeting on Monday of next week with the regional planning district staff on drafting the request for proposals for the comp plan. And then it will be submitted to the commission, planning commission, and to the board for review and comment, because it's sort of a moving target as to what that RFP should entail. Is it just an overview of the current plan and minor updates, or is it very comprehensive in terms of changing the overall plan?
Right, it seems important to me that these two things don't come into conflict with each other. I don't know that they would. The only thing that I see, and I don't know if it's good or if it's bad, just that it's probably gonna happen, is that if we take action on this and move forward under the banner of business park, it's gonna give an impression to the people of the county when it comes time for them to weigh in on the comp plan, that that's the direction the county is moving in, even though we're just looking for a report. Okay, it'll just give that impression. So what that means to me is that you're gonna have people saying, yeah, we wanna buy into this, and you also have people saying, no, this is not what we want. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because having the public involved in the comp plan is critical, and actively involved is better. And it does give us an opportunity to see a little more clearly what the public vision for the county is. We have our visions, and when it comes, when things come around to the board to decide, that's going to be up to, whoever's sitting here to do. But I think it is important that comp plan give direction so that whoever's sitting up here doesn't, jettison, go around, or, keep things in line with what the comp plan's going to be doing.
Right. This first phase work would be the assessment of the property to determine is it valid for development or not. Then the next steps after that would have to be decided. It's not, we're going to build this park immediately and et cetera, et cetera. This is to assess the property and give the board comprehensive information on whether or not the property is suitable for development for whatever purposes.
And I think a lot of those facts are going to come out naturally, that your concerns that Skip brings up. I mean, I think there's a lot of visitors that talk about topography issues of Nelson and many other different things. And we're going to find out that specifically and what it is capable of and what it isn't. I do not foresee Nelson, and nor do I really want this future for it, of major industries such as a Glad factory where they need 2,000 jobs tomorrow. Also, that scenario doesn't exist for Nelson County because we don't have the workforce to do that. What I think this business park could really complement is probably a higher niche, like a software developer or a think tank group of 10 to 15 people. Does that make sense? I mean, it's not. I don't really think the word business park is going to mean.
But you can do that anywhere,
and that's why
and it's not going to affect the neighborhood.
Well,
Because you can make them
right.
look like houses and things of that sort.
the neighborhood's still going to call. And some of these groups don't necessarily want that business in that way. I mean, you can see some of the competitive businesses that hit the state of Virginia. They go to Arlington or Alexandria, usually because there's services there that they'll never get here. But also more so than that is, as Steve mentioned, there's nothing really available immediately,
All right, if you look at the big picture, you look across the nation, around the world for the kind of things you're talking about.
Right.
You want to come to Nelson County that would employ people from Nelson County, and they would feel that the people from Nelson County were employable. What we need, what I continue to say this, what we need to work on is the community, the quality of life in Nelson County. Because let me finish. We all agree the quality of life in Nelson County is outstanding. So we should concentrate on those things, primarily the schools, really. That people that might want to have their business in Nelson County would want there, because the kids could go to public schools and not have to go to St. Anne's or some other place, that would be tremendous advantage we would have as a community to attract employment. Plus the fact that if your schools are outstanding,
I mean.
you have people who can think and solve problems.
Skip, this isn't mutually exclusive. Like, just because we work on the business park doesn't mean that all of a sudden we're not gonna think about the community either. I mean, we can do both simultaneously.
If I may, I would just reiterate the point I made, it's the board's decision. These prospect reports that I regularly see, they'll have potentially 50 businesses that listed, number of jobs, what the business does, and
Right.
the investment the business is planning on making.
Right.
And it'll show the localities that they plan to visit or have visited.
Right. And
I see green, orange, Madison, Louisa, Savannah. I rarely see
Nelson.
Nelson County.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't make any go for Virginia.
Most of that is 64.
We have 29.
Well, I know that, but most of it's 64, all those counties. But
Yeah.
my biggest thing is, until we can, if you know about the property price, I just think it's just way out there. I mean,
This will give you, and I'm not trying to advocate strongly for or against, I just want the board to be as informed as possible. The assessment will tell you how much of the property is worthy of potential development, because there's a lot of streams that run through those two parcels. It'll be an assessment of the property that would give the board information that would be helpful in the negotiation of a purchase price for the property. It's not, once you start, that you have to then build a business park. It's an assessment, a very detailed assessment of these two parcels.
How costly is it? Just even just us even researching the business park. It's not going to be much different than if we were.
Well, if you're asking how much, they proposed 63,000. The budget prior to receipt of that proposal for this year has 50,000 in it for this
So
project.
we've already allocated 50K. They haven't touched it yet.
We couldn't go forward because we don't have the authority to board to do so.
Right.
Mr. Rutherford said something interesting and it got my attention, which I hadn't thought about before, which is the availability of labor force
Right.
for business park.
That's something that is a potential issue, but that would be something the consultant we've retained is very capable. This is something they specialize in, economic development. We can provide you with more, if you want to table this and get more information, we can give you a lot of information on how they've assisted Louisa with their park.
Sure.
Ours, if the board endorsed it, would probably follow a very similar path.
Well, the labor force is every bit as important as the site.
Plus
And-
the infrastructure,
Right.
water, sewer, electricity.
Right, but that's related to the site. So, obviously this is a review of the site, but it doesn't give us the other side, which is, staffing, workforce development,
That
et
would be the
cetera.
next step.
So how would that next step? I mean, does it make no sense to include that in this analysis? Or is
We can add that.
I don't know.
I mean,
the question, I just don't.
That particular question that you have is really critical on so many levels that needs to be answered anyway, because as that relates to affordable housing, that relates to school system and how many kids we're going to be having in our school systems. What are able-bodied persons who are able to have a job, what that number is, which is also census data. Like, there is some of that is grabbable. But the question that trickles down to is, where are they working? What do they want to do? And those are two very hard questions. And then it's the follow-up to that is who will come. And so you have three really critical things there, and you want to, yes, I'm the advocate of making sure Nelsonians are getting the jobs. And I think, you have to look at that twofold. One, directly, whether that's, let's just say, metal hardware place that's only going to hire 10 people and they hire the 10, welding grads from our high school, or whether that's the indirect. Okay, well, this might be a very niche, job. However, there's outside services that this will help contribute and grow from there. So I think it's a twofold conversation. But the workforce piece is huge. You know, it by itself, limits what we can even build,
Part of the workforce question though is some industries train their own workers.
So we bring that up all the time. I mean, you could look down across the river, Buffalo Air, they do a lot of training. They go to the high school. Certain groups are willing to do that. So for example, one big industry that I think the high school is still working on this program is, renewable energy. They literally put, storage yards and they put, training facilities where there is dedication towards that. So, and that's a huge growing industry. They would look at something like a business park and say, how convenient. The high school is teaching solar and whatnot, and we have the ability to open up a facility tomorrow, and that's a very.
But when you do something, you take a risk, you're
Everything's a
investing
risk.
in something. If you begin to invest in the quality of life in Nelson County, you're also investing in bringing industry to Nelson County. And I would propose, I think you have a much better chance of attracting the kind of industry that you're talking about if you.
We just don't want them to go on 151. We want them on 29. And how we can attract them to that spot.
Schools, a pool,
Well,
recreation.
Pools and school, they still can go to
hiking
151.
trails, all those, it's like, you say you want to think outside the box.
But that doesn't get them to 29.
I mean, all of it is risk, you're all trying, whether you build a business park, you want to attract, or whatever you do. But there's one advantage in concentrating on making the Nelson County school system better and making recreation better. And that is, if we fail, we still have that for ourselves. We still have, the people of Nelson County will still enjoy a superior school system. We'll still enjoy, it's like, you're making a bet, but it's a bet that has a couple different payoffs.
And this is a cheap bet too, of 50 grand.
Oh, yeah, well, this,
That's a cheap bet.
Individual property owners can
Yeah.
continue to support this.
You're making another bet here, which is intriguing, which is going forward with this, it puts, like I said, the people that are sitting in these chairs in a position of making decisions of what might go there and what it would look like. Does it include community amenities? Does it include housing? Does it include small scale business that's located, that is conducive to an area that is beautiful, but does have excellent internet facilities, which allows all sorts of things to be here. It's a different conception of what a business park could be.
Right, that's what I've suggested to the board in discussing this project proposal in the past. This property, once you have the assessment, you could look at it as a mixed-use development with business, housing, retail, whatever, shape it the way you want. This assessment looks at the property now and evaluates it and will give you, the board, a significant amount of information on whether or not it's worthy of consideration to be acquired, and then how you want to develop it.
Well, the other thing needs to be looked at is, what is the ideal population for the county? I mean, we've hung around this.
The projections are the county's going to stay about the same for the next, I think, 20 or more years.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, the population is actually less now than it was back in the 20s or 30s.
That's true.
And that is what it's going to tell you what quality of life you're going to have. So at what is the balance there? Because if you bring in another 10,000 people, then you're going to lose, and we'll get that in the Rock Ridge Valley now, that with the traffic and stuff, it is nowhere near as desirable to be along that route as some of these other localities over here.
New houses are going up in 151.
I mean, There's a lot that we won't be able to control.
But
There's
it's
a lot.
not people that's actually moving in, it's relocating.
We do know this. We're lacking in young families. Young families need places to live, and of course, want to live in a community that they want to live in. That's, welcoming. And we got to answer two things. How is it that they're going to make and survive in Nelson? And two, what are the businesses that complement that?
Or you want to give them an opportunity to be able to do good work that's satisfying,
Sure.
feels good and all of it,
Right.
and supports their
Their
ability
family.
to.
We want to
do
be
that.
able to, and quality of life, that is jobs.
One thing I didn't mention, ever since I've worked for the county, the demographic on people working in and outside the county, 50% or more of the county's working population commute out of the county.
That's true. Yeah. As it relates,
I'd
we,
say it's probably a lot more than 50%.
we talk about that at the regional housing
And
partnership.
that's not a negative thing either,
Yeah, I understand.
because you had the quality of life at home and, go into Old Trails in Albemarle County. Who in the world? Because most of the people that live there are people that live in Northern Virginia. I went to Richmond the other day, and I'm gonna tell you what, I ain't never been so sick of a place. Wanted to get out of there. The traffic was just,
I don't see the county changing.
I don't think it's gonna-
anytime soon.
Our Nelson County's biggest struggle will always be topography. We're one of the most difficult counties to develop. It's a fact. There's between Livingston and Charlottesville.
wait a minute, wait. Let me stop you there. There ain't no worse place in the county to develop than Wintergreen.
Well,
But
and Wintergreen would
did they
never
develop
happen
that?
ever again.
And
The,
that's also an asset. That's why Charlottesville has moved south.
and the thing is a Wintergreen would never be able to happen today, by today's standards. 1970 rules versus 2020s,
Well, no, it was
$1 billion
some very
difference. You were there.
good, no, I wouldn't,
You were kind of there.
yeah, I was in high school. But,
You were alive.
Candy's, I don't know how you would say it, but Candy's husband's father was part of that board. Tom.
Candy.
Then that was the group that really, you just think that the forward thinking that group was doing, and, we've been very beneficial from it.
I feel like we keep it on there.
All right, we need to get,
Agreed. I've been sitting here quiet, chomping at the
Yeah,
bit
it's your turn.
for about 15 minutes, but I'm confused. We met back, I can't remember if it was January, February, and the five of us sat around and brainstormed our priorities and came up with a list of things that we as a board agreed, 100% unanimous agreement on, that we wanted to do. And they included things like we agreed we wanted to attract business, we wanted to build infrastructure, we wanted to have a positive impact on quality of life for our residents. And positive impact on quality of life is not just pools and parks, okay? It's jobs and it's housing as well. It's all part of the project. No one is saying they're mutually exclusive. You don't have to give up a pool or a park in order to have a business park. But it sounds to me like you all, or some of you, have changed your priorities since we all voted just a few months ago on what we as a county wanted to do. We have been looking at this piece of land as a potential site for this county for probably 20 years or longer. And we now have that once in a lifetime opportunity to act on it. I personally feel that if we don't do our due diligence as a board and pursue what the opportunities are with that piece of property, that we're letting down the board, we're letting down the residents of Nelson County. We need more information to decide, do we want to pursue something or do we not? Sitting back and saying, I don't want to talk about it now, that's not the right approach. We need the information to make an informed decision on what we want to do with the property. I personally would rather have more information to decide what I want to support and what I don't want to support. And I'll tell you right now, I don't support something like a big and I don't mean to throw Glad out, but that's just what comes to mind. I don't want something big like that in a business park, but all the time we've been painting this picture of the coordinated effort in this property and what it could do for the school system and what it could do for the residents and what it could do for business and incorporating some residential aspects to the piece of property. And now I don't understand what's changed since that conversation in January. So for me, I think we have a responsibility to move forward. That's all I have to say.
What has not changed for me was the reason that I a little bit of a wrench in this to say that what is $13,000 was maybe something we should talk about, which was the addition to the cost of this, which is that realistically, given all the information we have, and we have quite a bit, is that this property is not going to be something that is within the scope of reason at this time to become something that we can invest in as a county. Now, that's a subjective answer, that I have from that.
I think that's still to be determined, but.
I was gonna say, I don't have enough information to answer that or to comment on that.
This would, again, I'm not trying to take sides here, but this assessment would help you with that, with determining that.
Well, on the other hand, all this money being thrown around right now, it might not be a better time ever than
Chasing.
right now.
We're talking billions. I mean, go Virginia, just our region alone did like $30 million.
Yeah, I certainly can't guarantee it, but in the conversations with the Timmons staff, they indicated, I said, well, what do you think is the reality, the real prospect of Go Virginia money if this project moves forward? And none of us can guarantee it, of course, but they said $3 million minimum. So. But again, no one can guarantee that. There's an application process and it's.
The thing is, see, there's got to be a payday sooner or later. All this stuff that we're throwing out there and giving everybody and all that stuff, somebody's gonna have to pay for it one day. But if they're throwing millions of dollars away in Amherst County, well, if we don't grab some, that,
What are you doing?
yeah.
We're not the ones allocating the money. We're ones trying to utilize it.
We're trying to get it.
Mark, somebody do something.
I'd say we keep it in there and just keep going. And then when we find out it's not, or if it is, then we decide that the big dollar items haven't happened yet.
Well, the agenda includes a proposal from Timmons to conduct this initial assessment. It's, what the staff would seek is a vote yes or no on that.
Okay.
So do we have a motion?
Sure. Move to keep the business park study as we have been.
Accept Timmons' proposal.
Oh, yeah, accepting Timmons' proposal, sorry.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Park?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
No, that wasn't easy.
We're not done yet.
Yeah, but it's good that we have the time to talk about it and be thoughtful.
We certainly don't want to leave the door blindly.
Right. Happy with that. Okay.
The next consideration is the recreation project, and we sent out Architectural Partners proposal. As with Timmons, Architectural Partners was competitively procured through a request for proposal process. They've been the county's architectural consultant for phase 2 of the courthouse project and also for the library expansion project. So we're very familiar with them and think they're an excellent firm to work with. So what this first phase study would entail would be an update of the 2012 study and work that Mosley Architects did for the development of a recreation facility. And the input from the board, we took that back to Architecture Partners and they revised their proposal to comport with the comments from the board about we want to ensure that there's equity among a large-scale project with just a swimming pool project, et cetera. So I think we've addressed the board's comments, and the question is consideration to approve architecture's proposal to initiate the study. And part of the study, which will coordinate with architecture partners, if this is approved, to potentially work with Timmons, is to, one of the elements of the rec study is to also identify a suitable site. And we have a couple properties, one of which was just discussed, that we've sort of targeted as the best potential sites for this facility. If they fail, then we'll have to look further. But essentially, we're ready to go if the board is. The cost from Architecture Partners is $21,000. The budget was $30,000. If they don't work with Timmons and work with another engineering consultant that they customarily work with to do site assessments, just a preliminary site assessment is $2,500 per site. And if it gets down into more of a detailed assessment, it's $15,000 per site. So we probably can keep it within the $30,000 that's budgeted. If not, it shouldn't be much. They've been very good about maintaining their cost proposals within their proposed cost. So this would look at a large-scale project encompassing an indoor facility with multi-purpose facilities, including a pool, to something is only an outdoor swimming pool, where we look at everything and report each of those elements back to the board.
I just have one comment, and then I'll step back and give everybody else a shot. I was really happy to see the bullet points that were included in this from the conversation with Claire and Claire Richardson. However, I don't know if this is a typo or if it was intentional, but the third to the bottom bullet point where it says a splash park should be included, I would just assume that should be could as opposed to should, because otherwise it looks like it's a priority, and I don't think it is. This is second page, they're talking about a splash park should be included as part of the center. And I think that should be could, because it's going to be really useful for us to see, costs of each of these things as additions and not have that as a big overarching and go into.
I'm just semantics, but I think we do want to look at that.
I think we want to look at it, but should is probably too much direction. And I don't want that to be assumed that that's what it is.
Of course.
So if you could change that to a C, I would like that. But I think the other additions that are there based on that are all really solid.
Yeah, as is indicated or said, we tried to ensure that the comments of the board were crafted back into the proposal. So, not to leave the board, what we need is if the board's, if you don't have any more questions, is a motion and a second to accept, authorize the staff to accept the architect's proposal for the recreation center complex study.
I have a question. I found that meeting that we had with the flashboards and everything not really satisfying. My question is to my fellow board members. What do you have in mind for recreation center? What you're thinking about it? I mean, how extensive a recreation center are you thinking about?
Well, I want to think about this one, knowing that we can only afford this one, but, lay it out there and just see what
happens.
I don't want to shortchange it and, say, well, God, I wish we'd have done this additional thing or something, but look at it from the big standpoint.
What about you guys?
I mean, I think it's part of a longer scale of increasing the quality of life and for our community and people putting value in it. I think it has a huge piece. Athletics is a good thing, and we've seen many communities properly and effectively capitalize on athletics. I think sports tourism comes into the spectrum a little bit as well.
Sport tourism.
But take me a step back, but we just funded some of that, you know?
Like this thing that they were doing
Yes,
there.
that's-
I've seen that in Cooperstown, New York, and
Yeah.
I'm not really.
And I get that.
Plausibility of that. You know, they have like hundreds and hundreds of hotel
It
rooms.
attracts families, it adds value to people's life, you know, and a community really rallies around that. I mean, I've seen what they've done in South Hill, and that's beautiful if you've never been there. And then they got one, I think Dinwiddie's got one as well. So I'm just saying, I think it has a great opportunity.
Are we gonna do it?
We're gonna do it.
Mr. Parr, what's your position?
My position is we've been talking about the goal of having some sort of recreational facility for a long time. And I think that this study is the right step in that direction. My vision, you asked what my vision is?
Yeah.
I would like to see a facility somewhere on the west side of 29 that would have a building that would house both an indoor and an outdoor swimming facility, so we could have swim teams at the high school. Something that might even have a splash park that we mentioned in here. An indoor track was thrown out at one time. Meeting facilities where if groups wanted to do yoga classes or whatever, you know, have different facilities. I would also like part of the grounds to include ball fields. You know, we've got situations now where the county doesn't own any ball fields. Those are all school-owned facilities. And let's say, for example, some of these clubs, you know, there's baseball clubs that want to get together, but they're not allowed to use school facilities because they're not school clubs. They're, you know, outside independent clubs. They could use this facility and you could have that. So I envision something like Tommy said, I want to envision this and then decide we can't afford it and maybe we have to go with this. But I want to know what this looks like before I decide on this. You know, I'm not going to go in and support, well, let's just start by doing a little something over here and then see what happens. Because if we do a little something over here, then we might have wasted resources and land on something that we should have done this and now we can't do it because we didn't do a full study. But that's how I
Well,
see it.
when those guys showed up about us borrowing money, we can borrow a ton of money, right? If we wanted to. I mean, we can, if we wanted to, we could borrow a ton of money.
Right, well, either at the staff level or with the financial consultant that we've also retained. And we would hopefully present all the information to the board. You would decide to what extent you would want to go forward with this project. And then we would need to work, maybe probably even ahead of that, on a plan of finance. How would you pay for this thing?
At the minimum, we have to build a social service building, right? That's almost
Well,
probably
that's,
the one minimum we have to do, right? Besides-
we haven't decided that yet.
Well, you know, yeah. So my question, are we willing to pay for this stuff to get it? You know, I mean, we need ball fields. We need those. I think we absolutely have got to do that. I favor the outdoor swimming area because I think that would be more of what the people of Nelson County need. In the wintertime, you know, there are people who would go, and people like me who were told by the doctor to go swimming to become, you know, because of my problems with my body and everything. But during the summer period, when kids are out of school, don't have school activities, that is a real priority with me in terms of community. Now, I know what you're saying about indoor and the swimming team and all that stuff here, but I come from an area which was, swimming teams were big, you know, in New Jersey. I mean, and you went there at 5:00 in the morning to swim and highly, I can't imagine us, you know, going in that direction. I see swimming as recreation. I see swimming as community. I see places where our children can be together. And that's what I would like to see as a minimum. That's where I'm at.
Yes, and we got it on the agenda. It's completely.
We all support that.
Yeah.
As part of the big project, but
Well,
not as a standalone.
Diane and I have been watching the Olympics here lately, watching the swimming especially.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you what, you told me something impressive. I mean, some of these kids, 17 years old, some of them are 37 years old. I mean,
I'm telling you, I'm from New Jersey. swing practice was at 5 o'clock in the morning. And your parents brought you to that, we're never gonna be there.
That answers a lot of questions I had about you.
From New Jersey?
Yeah. I just.
What questions are there?
You just told a secret.
I see this in context with the entire county because in some ways, we're talking a lot about, the finer details. But what I see is that Nelson County has this incredible mix of recreational activities from the Afton Tunnel to Wintergreen and the Nature Foundation. But those are in one specific part of the county. The addition of this recreation center in complement with the schools in the Sturt Nature Park, which could include biking trails there as part of that recreational opportunity, puts another focus on this part of the county and fills out, what every rural county would just dream of having, which is such this beautiful mix of recreational opportunities. And so I'm ready to go forward with this study. And then when it comes down to nitty grittying the costs and the details, I'm ready to go there.
We can arms.
I'm ready.
The only problem I have is, this was a study that was done in 2010. You were here with every intention of doing it. It never happened. It never happened. Circumstances, and to me, I don't care where it is, but the bare minimum, we have to have a swimming facility. And why not work on that? I don't think that needs to be bits and pieces and all that.
Put your brain together. How would you like being on the board back when we were saying, okay, you got to build new schools?
Yeah.
And at the same time, the court system saying, you go build
I
a new
know.
court system. And then we sit down and looked and said, okay, we're gonna build this first school, this Tide River School. It's gonna cost $6 million. And the financial people showed us how we could pay for that. And I said, yeah, I'll go along with that. We can probably afford one school. But how are we gonna do this? And it's a thing that you've got to plan out. You've got to have professionals that can show you. And the reason we haven't done this stuff you're talking about is when you've had to build all these schools, build this courthouse. Now we're at a point where we can really, with, schools that are paid off. I think Tide Rivers, I know that's paid off. I think Rockfish is paid off. You're getting to the point where, the middle school and high school.
And to a point where we're gonna make more money available to the schools? Should we do that too?
It can be, but as soon as they get out, I'm not willing to put on operational, but if it's things that we can do to, we just gotta get the whole thing. I mean, it's a big thing. I mean, and it's not one thing. But you got to open up
The other
to
part,
your
which I
vision.
said before, in America today, government is bad, and that's why the guy it was really nice what you said about what they did, what you all did about getting, that thing fixed up in 250. I'll tell you, the people of Nelson County will appreciate a swim area to swim. They will appreciate it. And it has a huge psychological advantage.
Well, shall we move on this then?
Yeah, let's move.
Today, why not?
Let's do it.
Mr. Chairman,
Let's do it.
I move that we approve Timmons
Architectural part.
Architectural Partners plan as it relates to the recreation facility project
Project
proposal.
Second.
Took my breath away. We're not even done yet.
Okay. Any further discussion?
No. Let's vote.
But I really enjoyed listening
Vote.
to
On the question.
Mr. Park?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
All right.
Can we take a brief recess
Yes.
before we
Yeah.
go to the next item?
I wanted to arm wrestle.
Thank
Now, you
you.
said before the next item, right?
Yes.
Not after the next item.
Yeah.
Are we taking a break to go to the
Take a
bathroom?
Yes.
Thank you.
Call in.